Welcome to the 12 Days of Christmas for Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations. Today I want to share with you a sled album. And so you're probably wondering why I have these big old crochet hooks. Well, those are going to be the runners of the sled. So I am not handy with cutting wood, and neither is my husband. And so I kept thinking, what could I use that would be low maintenance for me, or not very much work, but yet still have the same effect. And so I went online and I saw that they sold these really big jumbo crochet hooks, and I guess they're for crocheting like rugs and stuff. I don't know. And so I went to my local craft store and they had these, and I thought these are perfect. So if you're a person who crochets, you probably know more about this than I do, but the US size is 70, which is 35 millimeters, and they're 12 inches long. So they are wood, but when you look at them sideways, does that not look like a runner of a sled? Yes. So that is what I'm going to use for my album to sit on. So if you're handy and you can make the runners of a sled out of wood, more power to you. If you don't want your album to be this big, you can make a smaller version of this, but I'm going to leave them this wood color. It doesn't bother me that they're not metal looking or whatever. And I'm going to end up having my book sit on top. I'm going to probably E6000 it to these runners. So that is what I'm going to use for my base. So if you have something available that's different, go for it. So then I wanted my chipboard album that's going to sit on top to have the shape of a sled. And so to do that, you're going to want to cut two pieces that are 6 by 8.5. Okay, and I just used regular chipboard, and I ran it through my die cutting machine, and I used the Tim Holtz on the edge die, and this one's called Brackets. And if you can tell, there's one that I thought looked like the end of a sled, which is this one right here. It was dirty. This one right here. And so that's how I got the end to look like that. Okay, now I did, because this is 6 inches, I did have to cut off with my X-Acto knife just a little bit on the sides here. So that's how I got the front of the sled, and I did that to both pieces. Okay, now to get the bottom so that it's, let me try and hold this up. To get the bottom so that it's rounded like that, all I did was take a round template, and I used a plate, and I just drew a line, the curve of the plate, used my X-Acto knife, and cut that off. So then I took that piece that I cut off, and I used that as a template for the next one. So I just placed this on top and traced it, and then I had two pieces that were exactly the same size. So you'll see exactly perfect. Okay, so that's going to be the cover of my sled album. Now I wanted mine to have a black edge. Now if you have black chipboard, you can skip this step, but I just took black paint around the edges and on the sides of both front and back, just to be safe, so that when you see that border, it's going to look black. Okay, so these were 6 by 8.5 if you're using the measurements that I'm using. But doesn't that look like a sled when you put that on there like that? I mean, I'll have to make sure it's even when I adhere it, but I thought that looked perfect. And it's solid, so it's going to sit nice on a coffee table. Now I might put some felt on the bottoms here so it doesn't scratch if I have it on a table, but I'm happy with how this is going to look. I have a good feeling about this. So there's our runners and the base of our album. Now we're actually going to cut some paper that's going to actually act as the album on the inside, and we're just going to attach our covers later. So I'm going to set these two aside, and I'm going to move to the covers that's going to attach to the chipboard and the spine. Now I did choose to use Craft Tex for the spine. You do not have to, but this is a real durable, it's like a fabric paper, and so I thought this would maybe hold up better as you're opening and closing the sled. So I went with Craft Tex, but you can use the artisan cardstock or a real strong paper cardstock. So this spine measures 3 inches by 7.5. Now, oopsie, this 3 inches the spine is only going to be 1 inch, okay? But I wanted enough space to glue on the cover so that there's a good amount of overlap, just to be safe, okay? So to do that, I scored at 1 inch and at 2 inches, okay? And so that's how I get this 1 inch spine with 1 inch sides to attach the front and back cover. Okay, so that's 3 inches by 7.5, score at 1 inch and 3 inch. So then I want 2 pieces that are 5 3/4 by 7.5, and these are going to act as the front and back cover that will end up attaching to the chipboard. So just to give you a visual, it's going to be attached like so, and like that. Okay, and so the spine you'll see on the edge. All right, so you'll need 2 at 5 3/4 by 7.5. Now I'm going to use the art glitter glue, and I'm going to be honest, I've never used the art glitter glue on the craft text before, so I'm thinking that the art glitter glue sticks to just about everything, so I wouldn't anticipate there being a problem. One other thing I do want to tell you, to help with the covering of the sled, I wanted to make sure that I kept this little piece when I ran it through the die cut machine, that chipboard piece, and I'm going to use this as a template for my paper. I could also run it through the die cutting machine, but I want it to be a little bit smaller. So if I trace on the inside, I think that'll be just the right amount of border. So hold on to that for later. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to attach the front and back to the inside so that the spine wraps around to the outside. Okay, so I'm going to add my glue, and I'm going to be generous with it, and I'm just going to put it on this 1 inch side first, and I'm going to put clothespins to help me keep it down until it adheres, and like I said, I'm going to be generous, and I took the fine point off my glue. Okay, and I'm just going to slide that on top, and I don't want to overlap that score mark. My hands got glue all over. Okay, and let me get a wet wipe, a dry baby wipe. Oh, these are bad. I just got these and those are not good. I bought, I was out of the wet wipes, the Walmart brand, and I heard the new Walmart brand has a lot of lint. So I thought, oh, I'll buy a cheap brand, hoping that they didn't have much lint. Yeah, wrong. It was loaded. It's loaded with lint. So I got to go try. I hear Costco their brand is going to work for us, I hope. So whatever you do, don't buy Aldi brand. I thought that would do the trick, and not so much. All right, so let me just put some clips here to keep that down. And now I'm going to attach, this will be covered so you won't see this white glue here. Yeah. So now I'm going to put glue on the other side and attach the other part. Okay, I'm not going to worry about, I mean, I didn't put a lot on the other one and it started to squeeze out a little bit, but I'd rather it be too much than not enough. Okay, so I'm going to line this up. It's hard to see. Line it up to the crease, but don't go over, or the score mark. Okay. All right, and I will put some clothespins on this just to help it till it dries, and I think that's going to have a good hold. Okay, so that's going to be the base of our book that's going to be attached to the sled chipboard. So I'm going to set this to the side and we're going to do some cutting for the inside pieces. So that's going to go to the side here. Now I'm going to work with the left hand side first, and I'll tell you what you need to cut for the left hand side. So let's start with, there's going to be a flap, and so I would like for you to cut one piece at 6 1/8 by 7 1/2. When I bring that close to the camera, it is hard to see, so hopefully it's not too bad that you can't. Let me see if I can adjust just a hair. Okay. So anyway, 6 1/8 by 7 1/2. And you're going to, well, let me do all the pieces that you cut first so that we can get that taken care of. You're going to need 2 pieces that are 3 1/4 by 8 1/2. And these are going to just be flip up little pages. So 2 of those. And I already scored mine, but I'll get to the scoring in a second. You're going to want a piece that is 6 3/4 by 4 1/4. And you can freeze this if you need to. You're going to want a piece that is 4 by 5 3/4. And finally, for the left hand side, I just cut one piece that's 4 1/8 by 6 1/8, and that's going to be a mat for some paper that's going to hold the flap closed. Okay, so those are the pieces that you need. Let's get to the scoring. Okay, that was all the left hand side. So get your scoreboard ready. Now the 4 1/8 by a 6 1/8 piece does not get scored at all, so let's just set that to the side. The piece that measures 4 by 5 3/4, you're going to place it so that the 4 inches goes across the top and score at 1/2 inch. Okay, 4 inches across the top, score at 1/2 inch. Go ahead and burnish that too when you're done. I already did that. Okay, the piece that is 6 3/4 by 4 1/4 is going to become a pocket, and so with the 4 1/2 inch side across the top, score it a 1/2. Turn it so that the 6 3/4 inch side is across the top, score at 1/2 and 6 1/4. You're going to burnish those sides, and we're going to cut so that our pocket has less bulk and folds nice and neat. So I'm just going to taper those like so on the bottom corners. Now I am going to do a little bit of tapering at the top also. I just think it's a cleaner look. Okay, I have not burnished this one yet, so I need to do that. So we'll just fold those on our score lines and burnish on all 3 sides. Okay, and that will be a pocket. Let's set that to the side. There were 2 pieces that were 3 1/4 by 8 1/2. We're going to place the 8 1/2 inch side across the top and score it right in half at 4 1/4. 4 1/4, and we're going to do that to both pieces. Okay, so 8 1/2 across the top, score at 4 1/4. So you have 2 of those. Set that to the side. Now the flap that you cut at 6 1/8 by 7 1/2. Let me move this for you. And you're going to score at, with the 6 inches across the, or the 6 1/8 across the top, you're going to score at 1/2 and then at 3/8, and that's going to give us a 1/8 inch gusset, just so that it folds up nice and neat. Okay, so 6 1/8 across the top, score at 1/2 and 3/8. You're going to want to burnish those, and so you can see there's just a tiny 1/8 inch, I think you can see, a tiny 1/8 inch gusset. Okay, all right, so that's all for the left side. We might as well keep cutting while we're at it and getting the right hand side ready. You're going to need one piece that's 5 3/4. Oopsie, that's glare. 5 3/4 by 7 1/2. And this one is not going to be scored at all. And the other piece, we're going to have to do some work with it. So this is 6 3/4 by 8 1/2. Ooh, that light. Hold on. 6 3/4 by 8 1/2. Excuse me. Okay, so let's talk about how to score this one. So you are going to want to score this in half. And so the halfway mark is going to be 3 3/8. So go ahead and score it in half at 3 3/8. Then you're going to need to do a 1/2 inch score on all 4 sides. So 1/2, turn it, 1/2 score, third one, 1/2 score, fourth one, 1/2 score. Okay, so you made a total of 5 score marks around the outside edge and then in the center. Okay, now we are going to need to do some cutting, and so this is what we're going to do. We're going to end up cutting off one section of the 1/2 inch on 2 sides. So I'm going to cut at an angle, and then I'm just going to cut as straight as I can on that score line, but I don't want the ridge. I want to get rid of that little bump. Okay, so I took off one side, and now I'm going to take this side off, and I'll lay it flat here in just a second to show you. All right, so go ahead and take a look at that. I left the 1/2 inch border on the left, and on the right hand side I took off the 1/2 inch at the top and the bottom, and I did kind of angle it a little bit. Okay, let's deal with this one later now. Let's set this to the side and start putting together our left hand side. So let's go back and get the base of our book. Wow, that art glitter glue does an awesome job. It adhered that really well. Like I said, in the past I haven't used that glue on the craft text, and I'm real happy with how it turned out. Let me put away some mess here so I can have a clean work area. Okay, so we're going to have let's find our left flap. That was 6 1/8 by 7 1/2, and we are going to glue that to the very edge on the left hand side. Okay, so you can use score tape or your art glitter glue. Don't put it on the 1/8 inch gusset, just put it on that 1/2 inch, and we're going to butt it up to the very end like so. And it is going to leave you a little bit of space here on the side, but that's okay. We don't want our book, when we close it, to have any ripples or have that get in the way. So let me put some glue on here. All right. And I'm just going to put it, I have my book turned the opposite direction. It's just easier for me to see. It's really hard on this dark. I'm going to go ahead and open it up and just make sure it's burnished real well, and it's going to stick real good. Okay. Now you do want to make sure that you check to make sure you don't have any overhang at the top or the bottom, and mine seems to be okay. Okay, let's go ahead now and do our pocket. Oh, that white drives me crazy. Even though it's going to be covered, it still bothers me. Okay, let's see. So let's start with the pocket that we already cut the bottom corners out and tapered the tops. And we're going to go ahead and place this at the bottom here up to that score line, that up to that little gusset score line, and to the edge here. And it looks like that's gonna be perfect where I have it. So I'm gonna move this mat because it's hard for me to see that black on that blue. Now I think I can see that better. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put adhesive on my 1/2 inch sides here. And on the bottom. I'm going to tuck in the 2 sides, then bring up the bottom, and I'm just going to go ahead and line that up with the bottom and to that score line. I have glue on my hands, so I got to be careful. Trying to get the excess glue off. It does dry clear, that art glitter glue, so that's good. Okay. Ooh, all this white drives me crazy. I always get a lot of glue on my hands when I craft. I don't know, some people stay really clean. My hands always get really dirty. Okay, so now the piece, now you can decide if you want to round your corners. I don't think I'm going to, because yeah, I think I'm going to keep mine squared off, but you can do whatever you want. So now we're going to place this at the top, and you'll see that those 2 pieces pretty much meet, and so that's why we have this mat that's going to hold that down. Okay, makes sense? All right, so the left flap was the 4 5 3/4 piece. I'm going to turn my book upside down just so I can see it better. Okay, and line it up with the very top, and then that 1/8 inch score line on the side. Ugh, all that glue. I'm so used to having that fine tip. All right. Now, the paper line that I'm using is Bo Bunny, Christmas in the Village. And so I have 1 sheet of each design, and so this book's not going to have a whole lot of flips and flaps and covers, and but so you can always add to it, but I only have 1 of each sheet, and so I want to make sure we have plenty. So this is going to come down, and I might need to trim it a hair. It looks like I do, just a hair. So let me take care of that real quick, because I don't want there to be any overlap. That's not even. Hold on. I got to have it even. There we go. So now when I put this down, and I'm going to obviously put some paper from the collection on here, that will act as a stopper so that the top flap stays down. Okay. Now on the front of this flap and on the back, we are going to place in the center a flap up, because with this collection the cut aparts are super pretty, and so I made the measurement to work for 3 by 4 cutouts. So I'm going to be placing one of the cutouts on here and leaving the inside probably just the black paper, but that's the purpose of those 2 cutouts. We'll put one here, we'll open up our book, and we'll also put one here, but you can't do that until you put your paper down, your designer paper down first. Okay, so I'm going to move those off to the side and we'll use those later. So now we're going to work with the right hand side, and on the right hand side, this paper that we cut, the kind of the funky one, this is going to act as a pocket and as a secret pullout. So we're going to end up having it so it pulls out. So here's what I need for you to do. The center that we scored is going to get folded down like a valley, okay? So that it looks like a V when I'm looking at it. The 1/2 inch score marks, we're going to do mountains. So it looks like up, down, up, down. Does that make sense? Like so when I look at it. Okay, so the 1/2 inches are at the top and I open it up. Now I'm going to go ahead and burnish the 2 here, and I'm going to end up cutting out the little corner here because this is going to become a pocket. So I'm just going to miter that on the bottom, cut out that square, and I'll show this to you again in just a second. Okay. So we are going to put adhesive on the 3 pieces on the left, the 1/2 inch tabs, and we're going to place that down up against the spine without going over. Okay, now with those 3 pieces, we're going to end up folding this back over. That's going to make a pocket here, and you might have seen that before in some other books. And then we're going to end up adhering this top piece to that 1/2 inch. Okay, so that it folds out. So let me say that one more time. That center piece, fold it up so that it's a valley. The 2 1/2 inches on the left and right, they're going to become mountains. So if you look at it from the top, you can see the 1/2 inches going out. Okay, opens like so. And these we're going to fold down. The top and the bottom go down. So I'm going to turn my book sideways just because it's easier for me to work with. I'm going to put adhesive on these 3 tabs, 1/2 inch pieces. Make sure I get the corners. Okay. And I'm going to place that right up against the spine, but not going over that score, making sure it's lined up. Oh, there's my dirty fingers again. And press down. Here's my burnishing tool. Get rid of that excess glue. Okay, so now that where we folded it in half, we're going to fold it to the left, and we're going to adhere our 5 3/4 by 7.5 inch paper on top, and we make sure everything's lined up. And so that's what that 1/2 inch is for, is to attach this 5 3/4 by 7.5 inch piece. And again, maybe I'll leave it this way. So I'm going to put glue on the 1/2 inch side here. And I'm going to put it down here to make sure everything lines up. Don't want any overhang. Let's burnish it. Get rid of any excess glue that wants to squeeze out. Don't need to trim anything there. And so this opens up like so. When you turn this, this is a pocket. This becomes a pocket. Okay? And that's all I'm going to do on that side. So that's the basis of the book. So I'm going to come back and talk to you a little bit about putting the paper on. Because I want this to look like a sled, I have chosen a stripe for the paper, and I'm going to be cutting it into strips. This actually goes on the chipboard, not on this, because that's going to be glued to the chipboard. So I'm going to be putting this on my chipboard as the front cover, okay? And we're going to be attaching this book to this chipboard, just like so. Okay, so let me prep my paper and get some measurements for you, and we'll continue. I decided that this side needed one more thing, that it was too empty for me, so I made 2 pockets that are going to go side by side, just like so. And so if you want these 2 pockets on this, then you need to go, let's see, 4 3/4 by ever how long you want them, and then just score on 3 sides. So 4 3/4, do half, half, and a half inch. So just a regular pocket. So if your book is 7.5 inches long, you would need to make it 3 3/4, but you have to add 1 more inch on to account for the 2 halves on the side. So mine lengthwise was 5 1/4, because I just used scrap paper. And so with that half inch off, then it's about 4 3/4 inches long. So I'm going to do that just to add a little something to the booklet. I thought it needed something. So you can add those pockets if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to. All right, I went ahead and put my paper on the inside. So let me talk to you a little bit about how I measure for the inside paper. Some people prefer 1/8 inch border, or cut the paper 1/8 inch shorter. Some do 1/4 of an inch shorter. I'm a 1/8 inch person. So I went ahead and matted all of my cardstock. And so remember, with this one, after you put down your cardstock, you can glue this on. And I left it black on the inside. I also didn't end up putting it in the center. I put it up on the side here. And I thought maybe I'd have some sort of decoration eventually on this corner. When you open it, again, you put your paper down, and then you glue down the flip. Okay. And here is the pocket. I used the same paper on the front and the back. Okay. And then when you close that, this is what keeps it shut. Here are the 2 pockets I ended up adding. I did make tags to put inside and put some seam binding. The tags, if you're curious, if you did the pockets the same size I did, my tags are 3 1/4 inches wide, and they are 5 1/4 inches long. So 3 1/4 by 5 1/4. Angled the corners, punched a hole, and put some seam binding. Okay, so there's those 2. Now this is the page that comes out. So I did mat the 2 inside pieces. The collection, I got some of the brads that come with it. I don't know if I've showed them to you or not earlier, but it's this. And so I took one of the ornaments and put it down in the corner. These are really pretty brads. And then on the other side, this is the pocket. I did put one of the brads here. Everything's matted by, remember, 1/8 inch shorter. So now, before I do any major embellishing, or if I do major embellishing, we have a 1 inch, I keep wanting to say binding, 1 inch spine. I'll get it out. You have room to add a little bit of bulk on the inside. Okay. Now I've been thinking, and for some of you, if you do not have anything for the runners, this is still going to be cute and look like a sled even without the runners. So I went back and I painted in the inside also, because I'm going to be cutting those papers into strips. I don't want to see the chipboard in between, so I went back and did black. But even if you don't do the runners and you attach this, that's going to look like a sled if you decorate it right. Or if you punch holes in the upper corners and attach a string, that's going to look like a sled. So don't feel like you have to have those runners, okay? So notice I did not put any of the collection on the front or the back because you're not going to see that because we're going to be gluing it down. Before we do any gluing down, I'm going to cut some paper to go on the top of this and at the very bottom. Now, originally I thought I needed to keep that little piece of chipboard, but I don't have to. I'm just going to go ahead and run another piece through, and I'm going to cut it, my paper. Let me think. I think this was what, 6? Yeah, this was 6 inches across. So I'm going to cut my paper at about 5 7/8 and then run it through so that it will fit just perfectly on here. I don't need a full sheet. I think that's a waste for the inside. So I'm just going to do a small strip here. And then this I am going to use to help me cut the paper the right size to put a piece down here at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to do that to my top and to my bottom piece so that when I open the book, I see paper here and here. Okay, so I'm going to run the paper that I've chosen through my die cutting machine, and then I'll adhere it before I attach my book. I cut the paper for the inside of my sleds, and what I did was I went 1/8 of an inch smaller, so I went 5 7/8 across on my paper. I ran it through my die cutting machine, and I just cut down 3 inches for the top, and the bottom is 2.5 inches because the book will be on top. You won't even see all of that, but I did it a little bit longer just in case. Okay. Now, when I cut the bottom, I did use this template that I kept from when I cut my chipboard, and I just laid it on my paper, traced it, and then cut it out. I did go ahead and ink the edges, and so this one is my front, and I'll just go ahead and glue that down, and then I will go ahead and show you what I'm doing for the top and the bottom of my sled. Okay. And I'm going to just line this up as well as I can. It's not going to be perfect. Okay. Burnish it so it stays on real well. And where did I put that? Oh, I think I have the other one. Oh, this is the linty one. Oh, can't do it. Let's see. I'm just going to have to use this and then my finger if there's glue that comes out. And never buy Aldi wet wipes again. Okay, now the bottom piece. Make sure I get those edges. Okay. And let's do the other one. Kind of excited about how this is going to turn out. And like I said, you don't have to have runners. You can just make a sled with no runners. And you can make more flaps and stuff for your book and all that kind of stuff too. Remember, I just am working with trying to do a quick project, but yet have a great result. And so you can do this with one piece of the collection, one of each piece, and make it work. A lot of times when you make an album, you need to buy, have more than that. So this is kind of nice that it's going to work out without having to buy extra. Oh, I don't like how that. Oh, it's going to stay that way. I guess it's not bad. Okay, and then I'm going to glue the bottom one on. Run out of glue here. And let's find where that lays nice. Okay. All right, so the next thing you're going to want to do is cut the front and the back of your chipboard. So the sled in the parts that you're going to see. Now the bottom you're not going to see because it's going to be resting on the runners, but I still cut out paper because I want it to have a nice, neat, clean finish. So this is going to go on the other side here. So I cut this about, I think I cut it 1/4 of an inch smaller. Yep, that's what I did for the bottom. So like I said, you won't see this, it'll be on the bottom, but I want to have a clean, have it a finished look. So I ran it through my die cutting machine. Once again, I used this template. Now, being it's a little bit, it's not as wide, I just centered this, traced it, and then cut it out. And so now I'm not going to cut this one into strips like I'm going to do on the front one because you won't see this one. So it's not worth the effort. So I'm going to glue this on. No, I'm not. Hold on. Don't glue it. Don't glue it. We need to, where do I want to add the top, the closure? Do I want to glue it here or on the outside? So give me a second to think. Where do I want it underneath? I'm going to go, maybe I will go underneath. No, I'm going to go on top. So let's adhere. Let's go ahead and do a seam binding closure so that we can tie it. And I'm going to pick, I think I'm going to actually go with the like coffee brown color because of the paper I selected for the sled. And so I'm going to go ahead and cut. I'd rather it be too long than too short. So I'm just going to cut, how long was that? About 15 inches long. Okay, so two pieces at 15 inches. And I'll just use my art glitter glue to, I'm not going to go all the way over, but probably about 2 inches. Actually, I'm not going to go 2 inches because if I cut my paper into strips, I don't want to see the seam binding. So I'll go about 1 inch in and I'm going to try and center it. So just about 1 inch. Okay, give that a chance to set for a little bit. Okay, that's my top. And so I want to make sure that this lines up. So I'm going to place this on top of the bottom piece so I know where to glue the next piece of seam binding. Actually, I need to flip it over. Okay. You do need some sort of closure so your book lays nice. And this one you can go in a little bit further. That one's fine because you're not going to cut the paper into strips. Okay. All right, now we can put our paper. And so this is the one that goes on the bottom, like so. So let me go ahead and get some glue on this. And it's really starting to come together. I can't wait to decorate the front. I don't want to go crazy, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. You will have already seen the front because I'll put the pictures up front when you watch the video. But as of right now, I don't know what the front's going to look like. I did ink my edges. Okay. Alrighty. And I'm going to go ahead and burnish that on real well. Here comes the glue. Geez Louise, I need some. I'm going to go ahead and use the linty ones and just dab. Oh, nope, dabbing's not good either. Guess who's going to Costco tomorrow? I got to get some. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to move this one to the side. This is my back. Okay, move that to the side. And now I'm fortunate with the paper that I chose because you'll notice I have lines, some stripes. So I'm going to cut in the center of those lines and kind of space them out just a hair, just enough so that you can get the idea of a sled, like the wood slats. And so I'm going to cut down the center, and then I am going to ink on the inside where I cut so that it does look like wood. Okay, I cut the pieces and I went ahead and inked the edges where I cut. I did have to take the center piece and trim just a hair on each side, like just a hair. So what you want to do now is glue the outsides first, okay, and get them to over on the side to where you want them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the left-hand side first. Get some glue on there. My glue's running out. Oh, there we go. Okay, and I am going to turn this sideways just so I can see better as I'm lining it up. And I did use the glue so that I had just a little bit of wiggle room if I needed it. Okay. And I'm going to burnish that. And there comes the glue. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to take my nail and get that excess off for right now. Okay, now I'm going to do the other side, and again push it to the pretty far edge here so that there's room for that middle piece. I'm going to try not to use so much glue that it squeezes through, but I want the edges to stay down, so come on. Okay. Again, I'll have a little bit of wiggle time and wiggle room as I lay this down. Okay. All right. And now that middle piece. And let's make sure that you can see a little bit of the chipboard on either side, and we can. Yep. Look at that. Perfect. Okay, let's glue this one down. Come on, glue. There we go. Maybe that'll help if I spread it out. Okay. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and make sure it's down real well. Okay. Look, that looks like a sled, the wood. Fabulous. So now we're going to attach the book. So you have to decide if you want score tape or if you want glue. And I do have to contemplate that for a while, so I'm not really sure. Oops, sorry. So I'm going to make sure it goes all the way to the edge. Let me take these tags out. Okay. I want to make sure it's right up against the edge. So you can see, okay, and then I'll adhere the back page on, and we'll make sure we line it up. So I have to decide if I want glue or score tape. So I need a second to think about this. As you can see, I decided to use score tape to adhere the book to the chipboard covers. The score tape is really easy to use when you use the 8.5 by 11 sheets, so it just is a time saver. And so I cut it to size on the front. The back I did a bad job and I got crooked, so I filled in little pieces, and I'll use glue on the other spots that I missed. But that's minor, I can fix it. I did decide to go ahead and put some paper on the spine, and so I went with 7 3/8 by 7/8 so that it would cover the side, okay? And so it is time to adhere this. Now I'm gonna do the back first, and I wanna make sure that I get this binding, or this seam, not the seam, the spine, to the very edge of the chipboard. I want it to the very edge, okay? And I haven't done any embellishing on the inside because I want to make sure I get this adhered first, okay? So that's what we're going to do next. Make sure I have the right pieces. So the moment of truth, let's go ahead and take off the backing. And like I said, I'm going to fill in those empty spots with glue. My eyes weren't looking quite right, or I don't know, I just got off somehow. I think I was in too big of a hurry when I put it on, but okay. Now I've heard that sometimes the glue doesn't work as well if you put it on top of score tape, but I've heard the other also that it works really well. So I don't know, but I'm just going to put it on the empty spots that I didn't get any adhesive. Okay, and once this is down, it's down. And so I'm going to turn this sideways so that I can see that I'm lining it up. And I'm going to kind of stretch my book out so I can like push it down a little bit so I can see that I'm getting it lined up. Look at the top and the bottom. And I'm going to trust myself to lay it down. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and push down real well. I want to make sure it sticks, especially on the edges. Okay. All right, now we do want to line the top part up to make sure that it's even with the bottom piece of chipboard. Now you'll notice that my book is not, it doesn't sit up straight and nice, but I have not embellished the inside yet. So I needed to leave room for my embellishments and for the book to grow. So once I start putting things in, instead of it looking like this, it's going to look more like this. Okay, so I did that on purpose. I want room to add embellishments because I have some cute things I want to add. Okay, so now we're going to place the top piece on like so, and we want to make sure that we line it up. So I'm going to hold it up, look at the sides, make sure everything is even, and then I'm going to lay it down, and I'm going to kind of push it down this way so that I can get it to the very edge. All right, fingers crossed, everybody. Peel that backing off. Isn't that so fast and easy to use those sheets? All right, I'm going to turn it this way so I can make sure I'm lining everything up. I'm going to stand it up. Or am I? I don't really know what I'm going to do yet. Push that down. And let's hope for the best. And I think that'll work. So I'm going to push it down now. And it's not 100% even, but it'll work. Okay. Just making sure that all the edges are down real well, especially up against the edge. And you know, if you don't get it exactly perfect, your embellishments can hang off the side of the sled. So it's going, like if you look at this and you're like, oh no, it's not right, have your embellishments kind of go off like some greenery or something off to the sides. I promise it'll be okay. All right, so I will do my embellishing off camera. Embellishing is kind of a personal thing and how much you add and what you have in your stash. So I'm going to go ahead and embellish first, and then I'm going to attach it with either E6000 or hot glue. Haven't decided yet. Like so. Okay. So let me zoom out so you can kind of get an idea. Maybe that's as good as it gets. I just want a little bit of the runners showing from the end. I want the majority of the runners to show up front. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and embellish, and then we'll attach it to the runners. Here is a final walkthrough of the sled album before I attach it to the runners. I think you'll agree that it turned out pretty stinking cute, and it should be really easy for you to make also. Remember, you don't have to have the runners. You can just make a sled. You can just do the album on the inside. It's totally up to you. I have a lot of things that I use from my stash. I have a gold snowflake and a gold button. I had some stems of different, like some silver pearls and some, this paper is not really red. It's kind of a pinkish hint to it. So that's more of a pink color. I had some flowers and a chipboard pine cone, some regular flowers. I have a little piece of chipboard here that says, or that MDF board that says joy. I have the Tim Holtz deer die, and so I cut that out and used some of the paper to cover it. Have a flower around up by his neck. I had this pink, or this, it's not pink, pearl flower type. I thought that was a good place for it to help, you know where to open it. I have this seam binding that I tie in a bow to keep it closed. I also have this chipboard piece that says Winter Wonderland. But this paper, the wreath, is from the collection. I just cut out a piece from the paper. So the nice thing about this album is it does open, and when it's on the runners, it's okay that this is dimensional because it's going to be up higher. And so it's not going to hurt the front of the album. So here's what the inside looks like. Remember, this is a flip up. I just put a snowflake up there, and here's a row of pearls, flatback pearls, a prima flower with a burgundy colored leaf. On the inside then, I have the word joy. I have a gold corner piece here. This is from an older collection I have. I did have to, a lot of it was too white, so I had to use my Tim Holtz, what color did I use? Throughout this whole thing, I used the ground espresso. And then this flips up for journaling or pictures. In the middle here, this is holds quite a few tags. So this, remember, is the one that keeps it closed. And then inside, I just have 4 different tags from the collection that I mounted on black paper. Put them in there. And then this one will go in to keep it closed. Okay. Then on the right-hand side, these are the 2 pockets. I had an applique that kind of reminded me of poinsettias, even though it's not really. And a chipboard Christmas tree with the number 25. I had a gold filigree flat design that I thought was pretty, and tried to make it look like holly with the sparkle button and the leaves. Inside, I went ahead and attached with a round clip here a tag to go on it so that you can have more space to add pictures or journaling. Same way with this one, I just attached a tag on top like so. Okay, and that just fits right in there. Remember, this opens. So the wreath that I had on the front actually was hanging from underneath this lantern, but this was too tall for the front of the book. So I cut out the wreath, and then I cut out, these two are just paper pieced together. So it's a shorter lantern, but I thought it looked perfect. And then I just put a bow here with seam binding. Remember, this is from the, what do they call it? The Bow Bunny brads that I got with the collection. Okay. And then on this side, I just took one of the cut aparts and made it a pocket and put 2 more cut aparts inside. And then this pocket, I cut out from the paper just 2 little houses to put at the bottom. Put the flag here that says "Let It Snow." And again, I just mounted some of the cut aparts and put those in here so that it holds quite a few. I have 4 of them in here. So, and that just fits like so inside this pocket. There we go. And I want to see that back one, so I kind of stick that out a little bit. Put these off to the side like so. Okay. And that's our book. So it's not going to hold a ton of pictures, but it will hold, you know, I don't take a ton of pictures anymore. But anyway, that's what the book, The Sled, looks like. Okay. And so now I'm going to get ready to attach the runners, these big old crochet hooks. But I am going to I cut some felt, and I'm going to glue those on the back so they don't scratch up a table. But also I'll probably lay this book in like that fake snow. And so I thought white would be good because it would blend in with that snow. Okay. So I've got my glue gun warmed up, and I just took 2 strips, and I'm just going to glue it the length of the crochet hook like so. And I'm thinking that the glue gun should keep it on there just fine. So let me just give it a squirt here. And I'd rather have too much glue than not enough on this. Okay. And just make sure it's down on both ends. I need a little bit more here. There we go. And I'll put 1 more strip on. Put it up against the previous one. Okay, and I'll make sure that's down real good. And on the, oh, I didn't go down far enough, so I'll add a little bit extra down here. Okay, so that should help. And there we go. You won't even see it. Let's do the other one, making sure we center it in the back. Strips here. This one I got off to the side a little bit too much. All these glue strings. So let me add a little bit more here. And how's it up here? One more piece. I think it's important to get the whole length of this. I was just going to put little circles of felt, but I think it needs the whole length. All right. All that little glue strings out of the way. And now we're ready to attach our book. And I've decided to go with the hot glue gun. And I'm going to glue one at a time. And then I'll make sure that they're even. Okay. And this will sit up. This one's sitting up great. I must have not put this on very, I must not have got it in the center, and so it's kind of rolling to the side. But once the book's attached, it won't. So I just need to eyeball it and see how far apart I want these. And I do have writing on the crochet hook that has to be covered. Okay. Stand up for this one. About like so, I think. So that's about 2 inches apart. So let me put a bunch of glue just right in here, not at the very end, but just right in this section. I'm just going to load it up. Okay. Like so. I'll let that sit for a second before I do the other one. I have a little shadow. I'm going to turn this upside down, and I'll place the other one right about there, I think. I don't know if that's 2 inches or not. Let me see. Yeah, that'll work. All right, so let's put glue on our crochet hook again. All right, that was quite a bit of glue. And all right. So this is a little bit heavier. Let me, because of those heavy crochet hooks, but it'll sit nicely on a coffee table. All right. Can't really see the back. There you go. I feel like one is a little bit longer than the other. And there is our sled. And see the front, even though it has a lot of design on it, it's not hitting, it's not going to crush when it's open. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. Hopefully you can either find the crochet hooks or have somebody cut the pieces for you, or you might find something that you can just embellish and make it look like a sled. I appreciate you watching the countdown to Christmas. This is the second one in the series. And so please see the description box to see who's up next. I hope that you all have a fabulous Christmas and continue to look for us on the Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations Facebook page. And Merry Christmas to all of you. Thanks.